Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm your host, the Mighty Bjorn, and I am flying at you once again today with another Skies of Ace Combat video. Going to be talking a bit about the Mirage 2000, which is a really small French fighter that's produced by Dassault. It's a fourth-generation single-seat, single-engine, multi-role fighter. And like I said, it's actually really small. I was really impressed by the size of this thing. The design would begin in the late 1970s, and the goal was to actually create a plane to replace the aging Mirage 3, which honestly, this plane looks very similar to a Mirage 3, to be honest. I do believe it's actually slightly larger. I didn't look at the two specs of the two planes, but that being said, this one's a lot more modernized, even if it is kind of based off the Mirage 3. It was later developed into the Mirage 2000N and the Mirage 2000D, which are strike variants of the Mirage. An improved version of the Mirage 2000-5 is a more just recently more, I'm kind of fumbling this. It's a more recent development. There's also the Mirage 2000-5 Mark II. And the one that we have here in Ace Combat is the Mirage 2000-5. I think I'll just call it the -5 from now on. The origins of the Mirage 2000 can be traced back to 1965. At the time, France and the British were working on an Anglo-French variable geometry sweep wing fighter. Say that 5 times fast, will ya? However, France would withdraw from the project. The reason France withdrew from the project was mostly due to cost, or at least that's what's been published. However, France would continue on and would begin the Future Combat Aircraft program. It would take several years, but after some research, decision making, and figuring out the various details, an official series of requirements would be set forth in 1976. In 1982, Dassault would deliver its first Mirage 2000. The plane itself was a throwback to the first generation of Mirage fighters, but it had several improvements and innovations to solve the shortcomings that the earlier Mirage planes had. The Mirage would enter service in 1984. The Mirage 2000 served with the French during Desert Storm, the Bosnian War, the Kosovo War, and it also served in Afghanistan. However, the Mirage 2000 began being replaced by the much newer Dassault Rafale, which I've actually talked about in a previous video. And as you can see there, it still kind of sort of has the same Delta Wing style design that the Mirage 2000 has. It just has extra canards, where the Mirage 2000 doesn't have canards. The Rafale became operational in 2006, and since then it's been, like I said, been replacing the Mirage fighters. In 2011, the Mirage 2000 were committed to enforcing a no-fly zone in Libya. On April of 2018, 4 Mirage 2005s were committed to the joint military operation during the Syrian civil war. The -5 has a major advancement over the previous generations of the Mirage 2000. It had extensive electronics, sensors, and cockpit upgrades. The centerpiece of the upgrade was the new Thomas CSF RDY radar. And that's what actually the radar looks like. That's placed in the nose cone, folks. The radar itself is capable for air-to-air, air-to-ground, and air-to-sea operations. The aircraft also has an ICMS Mark II countermeasure suit. The Mirage, well, the -5 has a Thales TV CT CLPD laser designator pod And it can track actually up to 24 targets at one time. And from what I can tell, it can engage up to 8. So that's actually kind of interesting, consider how much ordnance this thing can carry. I'll get into that here in a bit. Outside of France, India, the United Arab Emirates, Taiwan, Greece, Egypt, Peru, currently all operate the Mirage 2000 of various makes and models. Over 600 planes have been produced. Now, when I was looking at the specs of the Mirage 2000, it looks like it can actually only carry 4 missiles. I found that quite surprising. It doesn't seem like it can carry much in the way of ordnance. It is a quite small fighter, so I'll give it that. And it's kind of worked more or less as an interceptor from what I can tell, over being an actual multi-role fighter. Now, that being said, there has been, you know, some missions that dealt with dealing with ground targets, but a lot of its service in Desert Storm was actually as an escort plane, or at least that's what I could glean from the information out there on the Mirage 2000. And it also seems like that it's been more used as like a security plane, actually more or less preventing people from using no-fly zones, actually over air-to-air well, I mean, it's seeing air-to-air combat over its service life, but it's kind of, it's not like an air, it doesn't seem like it's built to be an air superiority fighter, is what I'm getting at. Even though it really wasn't, when designed, it wasn't meant to be an interceptor either, which is also kind of interesting in itself, that it's kind of fit into this role that it really wasn't meant to do, although that it can do. I'm not sure if you're all getting where I'm going here with this, but now that being said, I think the Mirage 2000 is going to be around for a while yet. Probably, I would guess, probably at least maybe another 15 years. But a lot of countries have already begun replacing the Mirage 2000s and upgrading what they have in their arsenals. France particularly has been more focused towards upgrading the Mirage 2000s over completely replacing them, because they're still waiting for more Rafale fighters to be produced. And it is still pretty capable compared to the Rafale. It's just, honestly, the Rafale is just a better plane straight up. Of course, it should be, it's a more modernized plane. And it's got canards, which gives it actually a huge advantage in, you know, just being a more maneuverable plane. It can make tighter turns and things of that nature. And from what I understand, canards also helps with taking off. This is just a recent thing I've seen. I'm not very, honestly, folks, I'm not extremely familiar with everything on a plane. It's just kind of one of those, I have general knowledge, and that essentially by doing the Skies of Ace Combat series, I've actually been expanding my knowledge of fighter planes over time and getting a better feel for what actually makes a good fighter plane. Why do they do things like put canards on planes? Because some of the planes don't really seem to need them. I mean, the Rafale is very similar as to the Mirage 2000. They're both delta wing designs. Now, one has 2 engines versus the Mirage here having a single engine. The Rafale is actually a slightly larger plane, more modern, but then it's also got canards on it. And that's when I kind of got curious and started going, wait, why does this have canards and this doesn't have canards? And why doesn't all planes have canards? Which is actually more interesting to me still is why doesn't all planes have canards? And from what I could see is more or less it has to do with the things that, the benefits that canards give, not all planes can benefit from. Like the F-22. The F-22 would not benefit from canards because essentially you could end up putting more G's on the frame than what the frame is rated for and end up twisting the frame and maybe even breaking the plane. And essentially, the F-22, even though it's a larger plane, can achieve the same agility as, say, the Rafale because of its oh my God, suddenly I'm having a brain fart on the thrust system that the vectoring thrust system that the F-22 has. Because the engines can tilt up and down when you're making tight turns. The way the engines works, it helps make those turns tighter. So the engines actually does what canards can do, and then there's more that the thrust system can do. I don't really know. It's interesting nonetheless, and I'm honestly, even at this point, I'm still pouring in more and more research. It's just all really interesting to see this different stuff and to see how these various planes get upgraded and what they decide would be like. You know, some of it, like with the, you know, with like the Mirage here, the Mirage is a great example. It's like, well, we intend the plane to do this, and then it ends up being, well, it actually got used like this, which is, I find that interesting in itself. And then there's the planes that it's like the F-22. When I did that video, it's like the Air Force wanted a Swiss Army knife. They wanted a super advanced plane that can do all kinds of crazy stuff. And realistically, when they even looked at what their requirements, their initial requirements were for their future 5th generation plane, they kind of went, yeah, we really don't need all that stuff, actually. I mean, like, we can really cut back on all the different features that the planes have, because while it sounds good, it's just it sounds good. It's not really necessary. And that it would increase weight and stuff of that nature. So I find that interesting as well when it comes to these planes. But anyway, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. Here's a plane I actually really didn't know anything about before I started researching. When I did the research on this plane, I went into doing the research and went, this is all I know is this is a French plane. It's an older plane. It's a small plane. And there's a couple countries that operate it, but I have no idea who. And so, like, I've hopefully, like, because of doing the research, I was able to share a lot of information that maybe other viewers didn't know. But anyway, folks, thank you very much for tuning in. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video and have yourself a wonderful day.